Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here on webcast1live.com. If it's Tuesday and 6:30, we're coming to you live from our studios in beautiful downtown Des Moines, bringing you the perspectives you love from the sides you hate. With me, as always, the man, the myth, the legend in his own mind, Dr. Petrosh. Doc, what's up?
I am a legend in everyone's mind. How you been, Blake? How was your weekend? You have a good time?
You know, I didn't have too bad a time. We got a lot of errands run. Finally bought a lawnmower. I was telling Ryan about it before we went on the air. And
was it a solar one?
What? No, it's funny that you mentioned that because we did buy a $100 old style real lawnmower, like the spindle with the blades in it. You know what I'm talking about? It's,
oh yeah,
the
push mowers,
the old push mowers, no engine, no nothing. And we took it back because while my girlfriend and I were very interested in having something that was silent and green and everything else, and it worked really, really well. If you have a small yard, like a very small yard, and you don't mind taking a while to go over it every once, and you are going to keep up on it every single week to keep that grass short, then you should look into one of those because they're cheap and it worked really, really well. And we had let our grass get too long because it rained so much and we didn't have a lawnmower. And so the grass probably got up to 6 inches tall. Well, at that length and for that kind of lawnmower, it would have taken me probably 8 hours to get all the grass cut down to where it needed to be.
You don't care about the climate.
And so we went back and we bought a gas-powered lawnmower, at least until the electric ones become a little bit cheaper. Because the electric lawnmower we were looking at was like $350, $400 at Menards, and that was just more than I was willing to spend.
That's a lot of money
on a lawnmower. And so, hopefully, we can get the lawn mowed maybe once every 2 weeks rather than once a week, and not have to use it as much. But we did, in fact, have a climate conversation when we were looking at the gas-powered lawnmowers, and so it's funny that you mentioned that. But
well, it segues pretty nicely into our first segment. Green energy.
Yeah.
So, that's, I'm a big fan of green energy, and a lot of Republicans like to give me flack about, it's just a big ripoff from the left and, everything needs to support itself. Now, I agree with that. I think it does need to support itself. But the problem is when you're giving we'll call them traditional energy sources, all kinds of subsidies, it only makes it fair that either you cut off those other subsidies or you give the same kind of subsidies to green energy. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes.
100%. I mean, oil gets billions of dollars in subsidies. GE, which is it's not only a bunch of other, it's a big conglomeration. And one of their things is energy, and they get a lot of subsidies from the government. And of course, the guy who runs GE is real good friends with President Obama. You're also talking, natural gas gets subsidies, coal gets subsidies. All these traditional energy sources get subsidies. So now I'm fine with pulling the plug on the subsidies. But if you're not going to pull the plug, I think you ought to at least boost it up, because solar, if you go to Hawaii, every house has a solar panel on it. Now here's the drawback. In your old neighborhood, in my current neighborhood in Urbandale, you can't have solar panels. Because I tried to get one.
Is that a city ordinance?
Yeah, it's a city ordinance. You can't have one.
Why, that doesn't make any sense, though. Is it because of how they look?
I don't know why.
Well,
Brad Zahn used to be mayor, and I should have asked him why. Yeah. But by that time he was a senator. So
and I'll tell you what. I would say one of the knock-on arguments here about solar energy all the time is how expensive it is to produce those solar panels, because you need the solar panels to power the batteries and so on and so forth. And it is in the United States, it is very expensive to put those together. I think building contractors that talk about solar panels and things, it can be cost prohibitive for some families and individuals. In China, it's not the case, because China has exorbitant government subsidies that go into producing solar panel. They prop that industry up basically to undercut us. Yes. And to provide cheap solar panels to Europe, which is something that we could be doing if, like you said, the solar industry was placed on a level footing with oil and gas.
Because it isn't just solar, it's wind.
Yep.
And and of course Warren Buffett and the other big investor, the guy that owns the Seattle Seahawks, that guy Paul, what is his name? He was in with Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak.
Oh, sure.
And they all invested in wind power because there's such generous subsidies. But they're not generous. I mean, these subsidies for wind is nowhere near as generous as it is for oil. And we've talked before about my oil conspiracy, that there's no way the government can get rid of oil simply because it's taxed too much. But the problem is if you're going to subsidize these things, subsidize them equally so they all have a chance.
Well, I mean, so they get a lot of revenue off oil contracts. You think they'd be able to and gas, and I assume that you're talking more about the sales taxes for gasoline and things, and user fees.
Well, it's taxed as it gets out of the ground. It's taxed as it's pumped onto the ship. It's taxed as it's brought over. It's taxed as it's unloaded, processed, reloaded, all that.
Have you looked into whether or not those taxes are offset by all the subsidies the industry gets?
No, I mean, there's far more taxes collected than subsidies. But the trick you have to remember is, we don't import just from British Petroleum or just from Shell or Mobil Exxon. We import from everybody. We do. We put our oil contracts out there, and those who can fill it, bring it over.
Right. Well, and the big, I guess, another argument in favor of green energy in this regard is when you pump oil goes into a worldwide marketplace. So the cost of oil, we are negotiating price per barrel of oil with everybody else in the world, and so we have to go with the world market. I got to think that you're producing wind power in for the grid in Iowa. That's a pretty regional market. And so you're not necessarily selling electricity powered by wind to Great Britain. But all the oil goes into one pot and is sold all over the world. And
it's tough to transport wind electricity.
Yes.
Over to Britain.
That's my point.
It's not very portable.
It sounds silly.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so aside from energy security, having more local control of that market would be advantageous as well. And plus, we're going to run out. I mean, there are a lot of folks out there. The big sort of out there oil conspiracy theory that I heard about a month and a half ago was, and it's not even a partisan thing necessarily, because I think the guy's just sort of crackpot just to be a crackpot, but this guy is convinced that the government is lying about oil, and the scientists are lying about oil, and that there's more than enough oil, and it reproduces itself under the earth naturally, and is replenished in plenty of time to keep using it forever. And it's just...
Well, but he's hit everything true, though. I mean, it is produced under the...
That's true.
And the other thing is back in the day when we started saying, hey, we're going to run out, these companies, through their own initiative, went and found ways to get more oil out of it. And the truth of the matter is you can't buy anything cheaper than oil. Really, if you look at it, relatively speaking, you're spending hardly anything for oil. The problem, and too bad we don't have coal-fired cars. I'd buy one because that's even cheaper. But the bottom line is, when you're sitting there buying a gallon of gas for $4 a gallon, and you compare that to a bottle of water that's going to be going for $16 a gallon, that's a lot of difference. That's a lot of money difference. So people have different priorities. We're going to be back right after this break. We're going to continue to talk about green energy. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Please follow us on Twitter, and please follow us on Facebook, and visit docandlefty.com. Please stay tuned for a word from our sponsors. We'll be back right after the break.
Petrosh and Associates, how can I help you?
Petrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around through the first segment. Certainly do appreciate the Webcast One Live sponsors that help to power our own green energy building right here.
That's right, because we're sitting in plenty of green now. Was that Brad's commercial right there?
No, I don't.
Frank, no? All right.
I don't think so.
Because I have something I want to mention after Brad's commercial here.
Oh, sure. Well, Doc, at the top of the show, you asked me about the Memorial Day weekend. We just had it here this past weekend, and we kind of spent the weekend. I spent the weekend kind of running errands on Saturday and Sunday, and then spent Monday at home, just watching some TV and not doing a whole lot. What did you do?
Well, I basically finished up working on my house. It was a project that's been going on since November, and tomorrow we're putting in the bathroom and we're done. By the way, just to let you know, we wished everybody well on Friday since I lost my internet over the weekend and knew I would. And of course, I always say a prayer. It's a prayerful day for me on Memorial Day because of all the sacrifices all of our people have made over the years to keep us free, and their sacrifice is what allows us to have the country we have today.
And I couldn't agree with that more. We both have veterans in our families. We both respect veterans quite a lot. One thing that I saw consistently from folks on Monday, and I'm going to probably write about this for the blog, but in this age of we're in the information age now, and we get everything so easily, and we're so connected through all the social networking platforms that we're on. And the one negative of that is that there's just instant outrage all the time, and it can be a little bit daunting to kind of go through that and follow that all the time. One of the consistent things on Monday that I saw was this outrage about people not being overtly appreciative enough of veteran sacrifice on Memorial Day. Hey, everybody, you're out there grilling and you don't really appreciate what the veterans have done, and so on and so forth. And while I think that we both can say that those sorts of overgeneralized, reductive kinds of things are not particularly helpful to anybody, the sentiment is certainly something that we would agree with. But I would just point out to the folks that got really upset about people posting their pool photographs on Instagram and things is that I bet if you talk to most veterans that have come back, most of them who saw action or who lost a buddy or something, they would say, yes, spare thought for us, but we would really rather see you having fun on your day off, because that's really what we are fighting so hard to protect.
Well, yes. And the veterans I know, and there's plenty of those, this is what they fight for. They fight for America. They don't necessarily fight for Memorial Day. They're not fighting for grilling, but they're fighting for our way of life. And one of the things that I know is, remember a few decent men, or a few good men? A few good men with Jack Nicholson.
Yep.
And remember, he says, rough men stand ready to defend our nation. That's what that's really a saying that goes back to our founding fathers. These men stand ready to defend us. And if we can't celebrate it outside with our families and our loved ones, celebrating America's greatness, then what have they fought for?
Exactly.
Really, those are the veterans I know, and those include family members. That's their feeling about it.
Spare a thought, have a moment of reflection, say a prayer, whatever you need to do, but I guess I would encourage people, don't feel guilty about having a day off on Memorial Day, because those veterans are having a cookout, they're enjoying a beer, they're spending time with their loved ones as well. And so I just wanted to make that point, but gosh, veterans, even though it's been Memorial Day, it's a great time to talk about it, have been in the news a lot. And I wanted to talk to you about this a little bit last week because this thing is just not going away. You guys have been following
as well. It shouldn't,
and it shouldn't. It shouldn't.
Go away.
It's being reported as a scandal, and I got to say that the VA thing is a bona fide scandal, and it is a scandal that this country has been sweeping under the rug for nigh on 30, 40 years at this point. It's atrocious what happens with these guys. This newest iteration of the VA hospitals in these 26 cities around the country misreporting numbers on purpose, cooking the books to make it look like guys are getting their appointments on time or within a reasonable amount of time it's an absolute embarrassment to how we're supposed to take care of these guys. I know, Doc, you see a lot of them.
Well, and the part of the issue is, and Lefty's right on this one, this has been an issue ever since it was created. It was created for veterans. And the problem is it worked well right after World War II. You had a guy named Omar Bradley who ran it. He knew what to do, and then he retired. And then it became a bureaucracy. And then it became a numbers game. And then it became a victim of number crunching. That's what's happened. And the problem is the people that get to work within the VA, these are people that, they're even worse than a DMV, because at least now when you go down to DMV, they're instructed to smile at you and ask what they can do to help you, right? Whereas before, and I don't even know if you remember the old DMV where they were just mean all the time and surly. That's the way they were. Well, a new directive came out, and I forget what governor did it, but they said we were going to be nicer now. Well, it's the same thing at the VA. Now, having worked within the VA system, I can tell you there's multiple problems. One, you don't have enough physicians. That's the problem. You don't have enough. Number two, the reason you don't have enough is most physicians want to make at least comparable wages to the private market, and the VA doesn't provide that. If I wanted to work for the VA, I would have to take a 50% pay cut. Now, don't get me wrong. I probably wouldn't be on call as much, and I'd only work from 8:30 to 4:30. But that isn't why I'm in medicine. That's not what I do. It's not why I do what I do. I want to treat people. So there's not enough physicians because they don't give them enough money. 3, there's a distinct apathy in the VA system. There's an adage called seeing the USA the VA way. You have a lot of these veterans who are homeless that simply go to a VA just to be able to get a shower and a meal, and then they run out of benefits, but they're still homeless. So then the VA, instead of going, well, hold on, if you want to stay here, we'll help you find a place. What they do instead, because it's cheaper, they give them a bus ticket to the next VA, and then they ship them off. There are hundreds of thousands of veterans going from VA to VA to VA, getting in and staying in until their benefits run out, and then they go to the next VA, and the process starts all over again. You have to treat these people. Don't get me wrong. If you go to the ER, they will treat you just like regular ER. They will provide the treatment that you need. But the problem is treating a bushfire is one thing, but making sure it doesn't happen again is something else. And that's what this is simply crisis management. When you don't have enough physicians, it takes months and sometimes a couple of years to get in. One of the things I tell my people is if you have benefits at the VA and you can't get in, you come see me. You can still get your medications over there. I will tell you, the patients I have from the VA tell me, one person was just in last week, said he'd waited 3 years for an appointment. Heard through the grapevine that I would see him for free since he had VA benefits. Came over, I got him seen. We're going to take care of them that way. It's my obligation. That's how I feel. It's my obligation to take care of veterans. And the bottom line is this is what the problem is. You have a bureaucratic system that is about the bureaucracy and not about the care of patients.
Well, and kind of tack along with that. I'm friends with a couple of people who were nurses at the VA. I don't know if they still are or not, but we were having a conversation. I once and on my big liberal high horse, this is a few years ago, I said, they deserve everything that we can give them because they've gone off and put their lives on the line for us. And so every veteran is worth all the benefits that they get. And the response that I heard from VA staff, from two people employed as nurses at the Veterans Hospital here in Des Moines, Iowa, was, well, not everybody. Not everybody. These guys that come back, they're a lot of them are faking it. A lot of them are not really. They're alcoholics or they use drugs, and so they don't really deserve the benefits provided by a grateful nation. Doc, how would you respond to something like that?
We're going to respond to that very excellent question right after this message. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and docandlefty.com. We'll be back right after the break. Thanks everybody for tuning in.
On the whole, I think Washington, D.C. is a terrible place. It's hot, it's humid, kind of smells, and it's totally lacking individuals who know how to create jobs and live within their means. Hi, I'm Brad Zahn, and I approve this message. And I'm running for Congress because we owe it to future Iowans to fix the mess that was created in Washington, D.C. I've had real experience creating jobs, cutting taxes, and balancing budgets while mayor and in the state senate. If you trust me to represent you, I promise I'll go to Washington, D.C. and do the right thing and come home every Sunday to spend time with my wife, my kids, and my neighbors here in Iowa. We cannot leave this country in worse shape than we found it. I will not pass this debt on to my children or yours. I will go to Washington, D.C. and tell them enough is enough. Standing together is the only way we're going to get Washington, D.C. to listen, and I hope you'll join me in this fight.
Brad Zahn for United States Congress.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for the first half hour, which I cannot believe is almost up. It always seems to happen. I always note it too, that how fast that first half hour goes. But before the break, I asked you, Doc, if you remember all these veterans, some of them not deserve the benefits.
Well, and this goes right back to the point I was making before. The VA is here to help the veterans. It's not here to ship them off to another VA. And don't get me wrong, there are alcoholics. There are chronic alcoholics that go to the VA. There are people with personality disorders that go to the VA. There are people there that self-mutilate and go to the VA. Now, are they drinking because they went to war? At this point, it doesn't matter. They're veterans and they're entitled to care. And care doesn't mean I'm tired of dealing with you, go to the next VA. Care means, hold on, you're drinking. Let's get you into our detox program and our clean living program and start building a new life for you. The problem with alcohol and with any drug use is you have to want to get clean. But it doesn't mean that these people aren't deserving of the service.
Yep.
If that was true, we wouldn't have Cornerstone in Ankeny.
That's right.
We wouldn't have Powell Center here in Des Moines.
Yep.
And the fact and there's a fact of life. Relapse is part of recovery. That's the truth. I don't know a single addict that has maintained a significant period of sobriety that has not relapsed at some point. You can't simply take these people in and go, you're just a drunk old detox and send you out.
Yep.
The other thing is the VA is awful at their treatment protocols because their treatment protocols don't follow the new protocols that should be implemented. I can tell you, I can't tell you how many thousands of detoxes I had. All right, not me myself, but as a physician. And when I went to the VA, I never a seizure, never a bad outcome. When I went to the VA the first week I was on the service because I was restricted on what I could prescribe, I had 5 seizures in a week. It wasn't me. It was the VA system. They seek to maximize the amount of money that they don't have to spend, and they seek to minimize the amount of hassle they have to go through. And it's really disheartening to watch this. You have people that are lifers, and they show up, and they do their job, and then they go home. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to talk to the VA. I've offered my services to our Des Moines VA for free on Fridays. I even told them, I said, you don't have to pay me anything. I will come in. I'll see 10 of your patients a day that need psychiatric help. Nope. Hold on, I'll go get vetted through VetPro. Okay. Nope. So the bottom line is it's a giant bureaucracy whose only job is to protect those that are in charge. Now, I want to clarify this. It isn't the people that work there that make the VA problematic. It's the people sitting in Washington, D.C. and the administrators of these VAs that make it problematic. They don't use modern medications. They avoid it at all costs. And they create their own problems by using medications that are not as patient-friendly as the newer medications. It's just that simple. Now, my brother Mike works there, and he does a good job. But at the last conference, he's talking about how he sees 8 to 10 people a day, and that it's a good job for him. And I'm glad. I'm glad he's got a good job. But seeing 8 people a day in the VA system is not going to help anybody. You can't help anybody if you're making people wait 3 years. The number of suicide. I mean, we talk about the suicide rate among returning veterans. We talk about motor vehicle accidents among returning veterans. We talk about PTSD among returning veterans. And I'm going to tell you the Des Moines VA has been short at least one psychiatrist ever since I moved to town back in 2000. That's how long they've been short a psychiatrist, at least one. Waits of 3 years. Well, if you're suicidal, you can't wait 3 years. If you have problems with PTSD and you're driving off the road because you think a bag is an IED, you can't keep living like that. And that's really what the problem is. Now, I'm going to say this before Lefty smacks me with it. This has been a scandal in every presidential administration I can remember since Carter. Carter had his own scandal in VA, Reagan, Clinton, Bush 2, now Obama. Would you agree?
Well, the thing about the current scandal, as it's being reported now, as I understand it, specifically is about the VA hospitals cooking the books on their appointment numbers. And they were provided with these really kind of, I'm going to use the word perverse, but I don't mean it just these really kind of problematic incentives on how they reported their numbers and how they were going to receive ratings from Washington, or I think maybe some extra funding might have been involved. That, hey, we're getting these guys in and we're getting them seen by somebody within 14 days, and almost nowhere in the 26 cities that they're reporting on this was that true at all. And it was first reported, I think, back in 2007. President-elect Obama at the time said, hey, we're going to take care of this. I'm going to bring my people in. We're going to clean this all up. And it kept happening. And it's resurfaced again. Different way of doing it. Same kind of problem. And you wonder to yourself, how many times are we going to have these issues with the VA? I mean, we had Walter Reed under George Bush. We have this under Obama, too. Bipartisan problems with the VA system. And all the while we see politicians on both sides of the aisle going around with their flag pins proclaiming their love for the veterans, and these guys are not getting the help they need when they come back. And they're waiting months and months and months, and no one seems to be wanting to do a darn thing about it.
Well, how would you fix this then? What would be the people? Would you fire anybody? Would you put different people into place? What is something administrative you could do?
Well, you know the system better than I do, so I would defer to you on that. But I guess I find it a little bit precious that the Republicans are getting so up in arms about firing Eric Shinseki at this point for a couple of reasons. One, there was the Republicans back in 2003 that had a huge budget cut to the VA. The current the guy that was running at the time, whose name escapes me, said after that they didn't need any extra money. They didn't need their budget realigned, nothing. And this was right as the first troops were leaving for Iraq. We'd already had guys in the field in Afghanistan for 2 years, and between 2003 and 2008, when Barack Obama was elected, the protocols did change a little bit in that they expanded access to guys with PTSD and mental health issues, because it used to be back in this was the big scandal in the late 80s and the early 90s, that all these homeless vets under Clinton that were going out, that were being reported on, that were being denied by certain guys named Bill O'Reilly on Fox News, but still it was happening, and this was happening. Mental health was not something that the VA was particularly good at addressing in the late 80s and early 90s. They expanded that coverage in the early 2000s up until now, and so we saw expanded numbers of guys with access to care, and no effort made to address the incredible influx of veterans that produced for the system. And all the while, we're being told that patient satisfaction with VA treatment is higher than it is in the private sector. And I'm sure that's probably true for the guys that actually get in. They get in, they get seen, and they get out. But for all the guys that are waiting 6 months, 18 months, like you said, a suicide is a suicide.
Yeah, you know, so you wouldn't fire this Shinsiski guy? Is that what
I mean, he's the guy. I don't know. When we talk about heads rolling and accountability at the top, I mean, if this is a problem that was happening before he was there, and it's a problem that continued to happen under his watch, then it isn't really endemic of the culture that he created. I mean, that's why you would fire somebody like this.
Well, no, you fire somebody because he's not fixing the problem. I mean, my thing is I don't care if anybody gets fired. I want the problem fixed.
Exactly.
And what are you going to do? How are you going to fix this problem?
You got Republicans grandstanding, but also admitting that firing Shinseki wouldn't fix the problem because the problem is endemic. It's in the system.
And it's mid-level bureaucrats, much like BLM and Clive and Bundy. You know, it's mid-level bureaucrats are creating problems as well as the high-level
like
ones.
the IRS.
Absolutely. And we'll be back right after the break. Stay tuned. Oh, here's my point about Brad Zahn. I think Brad Zahn's a pretty impressive guy. He is the least financed of anybody running, yet he maintains a lead, and he is capable of raising money in vast sums in a short period of time when they're needed, but he doesn't like spending it. I mean, I was amazed. He raised almost $50,000 in 2 weeks, and in order to be able to do it, he said, that's all I need. I don't need to run big, giant campaigns. And for me, you know, I guess this is going to be my endorsement. I'm going to endorse Brad Zahn because this guy knows how not to spend money. And that's what we need in Congress. That's my own personal take on it. So we'll be back right after the break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Please visit our sponsors, including Des Moines Anesthesia PC, 263-5316. I caught Frank napping back there. That's okay. And we'll be back right after this break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks to all our sponsors for sticking it out with us through the first few segments, and make sure that you are follow us on Facebook and Twitter, Google Plus, all the different platforms that are out there. You can text Doc about all the stuff that we're on because he knows it a lot better than I do.
DocandLefty.com.
And I sent a blog post into the moderator, so we're looking for that shortly. Basically, I'm going to dole these out the way the Pope used to dole out indulgences, which is when times are good, rarely. When for the financially for the church, but when times are bad, they're going to come like candy. So you're going to be seeing a lot of blog posts here in the next couple of days. But we're going to move on to the next topic, and this is something that Doc wanted to talk about last week, and I kind of hijacked the last few minutes of the show, really kind of without discussing it with him on the air first or even off the air, and that was the CIA's decision to stop using NGOs and other medical programs to as intelligence gathering outfits over in places like Afghanistan, mostly Pakistan, I guess North Africa, in areas where we are trying to gather intelligence for anti-terrorism campaigns. And Doc, we didn't get to have the argument that I think that you wanted to have. So why is this the wrong move?
Well, first of all, let's lay out both sides of the issue. You have non-governmental organizations called NGOs that are trying to do good work around the world. If we eradicate polio in Pakistan, there's a lot less chance that we're going to get it. If we eradicate measles in, Sudan, there's a lot less chance it's going to spread. If we can eliminate like nasty viruses like Ebola, then it's going to be a lot safer world for us. Well, so that's what these organizations do. The problem is, and just like that father and son team that got killed in Afghanistan, a surgeon father-son, they attacked this medical mission. Well, that's one of the downsides of using NGOs as your cover for covert operations. Now, the trick really is you have a lot of physicians who want to go out and do a lot of good works. You don't hear about, here we talk a little bit about my orphan work, but you don't see me writing a letter to the editor talking about how great my orphan work is. You do see Doctors Without Borders doing that stuff. So you have a lot of dedicated physicians in these organizations going, not understanding that the person leading this is a CIA operative. I mean, it's not like they show up and say, well, hey, I'm a CIA operative. I'm the station chief. We're going to run in there. We're going to take all this information and we're going to use it to hunt down the people that are going to do America harm.
Right. And by the way, don't tell anybody.
By the way, don't tell anybody. They don't do that. So you go not knowing that it's a CIA operation. The problem is, this is how we collect a lot of information in unfriendly places. The problem is there's too much backlash now. Our CIA is not secure anymore like it was. I don't know what's happened. I can't explain it. But just today, or maybe it was yesterday, I can't remember. Big article came out. Obama's administration accidentally outed the CIA chief in Pakistan. And he was over
somebody
there
from inside the White House?
Somebody from the military.
Oh.
And it's a complete accident. I'm not blaming Obama, but his people were supposed to review that. If they don't know who the station chief is in Pakistan, then that's right. A grievous oversight. So it's a terrible thing that happened. I'm positive that Obama did not do this on purpose at all. But the bottom line is we don't have a secure CIA anymore. And the bottom line is you can't send these people over there that are innocent collecting this, but
right.
You have to get the information somehow.
Well, and it's funny. I thought that we were going to disagree on this, but I think that we agree at least over part of it. I didn't have a problem with ending the program at all, because for all the reasons that you stated, it's feeding right now. It's feeding into this paranoia whipped up by religious extremists in Islamic terrorists in the Middle East, that they're sending out these folks to sterilize Muslims, and then it's a big anti-Muslim campaign. And by the way, there might be CIA operatives, and this is a big giant conspiracy from the United States to do harm to the Muslim nation in whatever country that is getting whipped up by these Islamic terrorists of the moment. And so sending folks out to into that kind of situation is really, really problematic. And plus, we certainly did get Osama bin Laden through one of these programs. We certainly did. But that doctor's not singing the praise of the United States. He got kicked out of the country. When he went back, he got thrown in jail by the Pakistani government because they didn't know he was a CIA operative, and they called him a traitor to the country. And
and we haven't done anything to help him.
We haven't done anything to help him because what can we do? We send, Pakistan's our ally ostensibly. So I mean,
they're not our ally.
You know what I'm. Well,
I know what you're saying.
Front of the house, they are.
Yes.
Front of the house, we all kiss and play nice, but back of the house, the ISS is undermining our troops every chance they get and funding the Mujahideen around the area. But a final thought on this is.
Well, I'm going to come back with my argument here.
Oh, go ahead.
No. I will tell you, I don't think this is the right move to say, geez, we're not going to use NGOs. Now, they might say it and continue to do it, which I'm all for, but if we actually shut that program down, there's going to be much more loss of life. There's going to be much less intelligence out there to be able to act on. We live in a world of modern technology. Mm-hmm. We need to use that technology in order to stay ahead. Americans don't have the luxury of being able to sacrifice 3 of our sons for the jihad like the Muslims do. I mean, that is one of their paramount tenets established by Yasser Arafat.
Some of them, not all of them.
Not all of them, but there's a bunch of them. So the bottom line is we need to figure out what's important. Is it important to respond to these paranoid religious right-wing nuts, or is it important to maintain what's best in the United States foreign policy interests? Now, I will tell you, people are still not going to go to these NGOs, no matter what the U.S. says. The damage has already been done.
Well, I think you can chalk a lot of that up to Edward Snowden, too. You talk about a non-secure CIA. A lot of this stuff was leaked by him a long time ago, and it's just now starting to bubble up to the top.
Well, and that's true. And just as an aside, if the CIA can't keep its computers safe, how do you expect electronic health records in your physician's office to be safe? Just a dig in there at Obamacare. We'll be back right after the break. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, docandlefty.com. And please read our blogs. Lefty actually got off his can and wrote a couple of them this weekend. They should be good. We'll be back right after the break.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, thanks for coming back, everybody. We sure do appreciate it. Any more thoughts about the CIA, Doc, before we go on to the next thing?
Well, a couple of thoughts. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, or at least I get this thrown at me, is how many, is an American life worth more than another national's life? Well, I don't know. I've responded to that. What would be your response if somebody said that to you? Is an American life worth more than anybody else's?
An American life just on par with the rest of the world?
Yeah.
No, they're the same. Life is life. I mean, my family is worth more to me than it would be, I would assume, to you. But if I was just a generic question like that, no, they're the same.
Well, I'm going to tell you, there's a reason, in my opinion, American lives are worth more than others around the world, and that is our philosophy. I'm not saying that there are bad people in Islam, or that there's not good people in Islam, and I'm not saying that all the Islamists are bad, but you have to sit there and look at the values. Are you willing to tolerate honor killings in our society? And if you are, that's not a value we hold. And therefore, it shouldn't be something that's tolerated.
Well,
that's the truth. What do you think of that?
Well, no, that's a fair point. And you're never going to have me, the surly agnostic over here, defending any kind of religious intoleration ever. And I am also not so intellectually dishonest as to say that right now in 2014 that a lot of folks that subscribe, that practice Islam or claim, I'll use a qualifier there, claim to practice Islam, are doing a lot of violent, terrible things to people and using their religion to justify it. Hindus have done that. Buddhists have done that. Jewish folks have done that. Folks in Israel are doing that right now. Christians have done it recently in different acts of violence carried out under the name of Jesus Christ, and we kind of all get together and we say, hey, look, it's isolated whack jobs that are misunderstanding the central tenet of the religion, and we don't have to worry about it. But I mean,
you're always going to have whack jobs.
You're always going to have whack jobs, and there are a lot of them. in the Muslim faith right now. I don't think that there's.
Well,
I don't think it's honest to argue differently.
Well, and they're driving the ideology is the problem.
Right.
You know,
that's,
I mean,
and that's a good point. That's a good point.
In Christianity, you know, you have somebody who gets up there and says, I'm going to kill these kids in the name of Christ. Just about every other Christian is going to stand up and go, hold on. And they're going to denounce it. And they're going to try to do something to prevent it. But you don't have any such denouncement.
Not a lot of moderate voices in Islam.
There are. And the ones that do speak up have fatwas against them and are hunted down and killed them. And, you know, I was talking to my brother Joe this weekend, who, you know, is I've talked, he's a conservative Christian. And he told me of this gal, and I wish I could remember her name. So, Joe, if you're listening, text it to me if you can, that, you know, she's not invited to speak places because to liberal university. You know the gal I'm talking about?
I do.
Yet she has a fatwa against her saying, well, this is what life is like this is what my life was like under Islam. So it's one of those things where, you know, I stop and I think, you know, number one, what are we doing over there? Right. And number two, if we're going to be there, let's at least import our values, because I believe, and I think you'll agree, that our values of respecting life and respecting liberty and having a cohesive debate without the threat of a suicide bomber is preferable to no debate, suicide bombing, genital mutilation, and the rest of the stuff that these people believe in.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with how you characterize that, but I would just say that there are a lot of American values or perceived American values that folks in Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan and Afghanistan and Iraq find highly objectionable to the way we live. And so when we talk about importing American values, I think that the focus should be on importing humanistic values to a certain degree. Say, hey, this is where we have common ground as people on this earth, and labeling things as American values or Islamic values or whatever serve to drive further division. That's how I would respond to that.
Oh yeah, and I could see that. Except when you start talking to these Islamists, and they go, "Well, women are supposed to be pregnant, and I'm supposed to have a bunch of them, and I can mutilate their genitals." There's not a lot of ground. Either you go, well, women are humans and deserve better treatment, or they don't.
I'm not going to argue with. I'm not going to argue with that.
One is an American value, one is not. That's my point. We're going to be back right after the break. I know it's a little bit of a short segment. We're going to be back. We're going to go over a little bit of climate change stuff, and we're going to go over the latest in the primaries. We'll be back right after this break. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Doc and Lefty every week, Tuesday, 6:30, 7:30 p.m.
On the whole, I think Washington, D.C. is a terrible place. It's hot, it's humid, kind of smells, and it's totally lacking individuals who know how to create jobs and live within their means. Hi, I'm Brad Zahn, and I approve this message. And I'm running for Congress because we owe it to future Iowans to fix the mess that was created in Washington, D.C. I've had real experience creating jobs, cutting taxes, and balancing budgets while mayor and in the state senate. If you trust me to represent you, I promise I'll go to Washington, D.C. and do the right thing, and come home every Sunday to spend time with my wife, my kids, and my neighbors here in Iowa. We cannot leave this country in worse shape than we found it. I will not pass this debt on to my children or yours. I will go to Washington, D.C. and tell them enough is enough. Standing together is the only way we're going to get Washington, D.C. to listen, and I hope you'll join me in this fight.
Brad Zahn for United States Congress.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. Moving on to more, you know, we reached a little bit of consensus in the last segment. I thought we just, I disagree with a lot of the premises of what you were talking about, but I think that we still came out to relatively the same thing. And speaking of consensus, Doc, 97%. In a new study, 97% of scientists think that climate change is real, that human beings are causing it. That's a pretty strong, endorsement.
Let me respond to this.
Consensus is the word of the day.
First of all, the name of this lady that has a fatwa is Ayana Hirsi Ali.
Yes, yeah,
and
I heard about that.
And I don't know what that means. So my brother Joe just texted me something else. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've seen this 97% of scientists agree that climate change is real and climate change is caused only by humans. I see that meme all the time on Facebook. I read it in the New York Times. I hear it on MSNBC. Here's what the problem is. It's the way they ask the questions in this particular study. They're asking questions such as, well, do you think human activity has any impact on climate change? Well, sure. It's always going to have an impact. Just like if you have a dog come in a room and pass gas, it's going to have an effect on the climate. Is it really going to change it that much? That's what's subject to debate. 97% of scientists agree the climate changes. That's what it does. It is historically, geologically, and that word, over the years. Scientists have proven that there's been warm epochs, cold epochs, in-between epochs, and we have from Antarctic ice cores drilled by the Russians that weather has changed and climate has changed in a period of less than 30 years. They estimate that at one point, the Antarctic Ocean was 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Now,
a long time ago.
But it was that hot. And at the time it was hot, that's the time that we had the most variety of fauna and flora.
Here's what, okay. Right now, we are spewing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere at a rate similar to the rate that was being spewed into the atmosphere over millions of years at the second great extinction a long, long time ago, where the atmosphere became poisonous and it got taken out of the system, and life flourished anew. Let's say human beings are replicating that in the span of like a century. That's the dangerous thing.
But they can't even agree what caused the extinctions. Extinctions usually happen not just for one reason, but for a conglomeration of reasons. There's much more to climate change than sulfur and CO2. The problem with scientists is they take something they know a little bit and go, well, the whole thing must be like that. And it's not true. Just like glaciers. How many times we hear, oh, we're going to lose all of our glaciers by 2010. They go up there, they look, they go, holy cow. Some of these great glaciers grew, some of them didn't, and it looks like on the whole everything's even. Well, the bottom line is when you ask them, well, geez, how come your predictions were wrong? They said, well, what happens is it's drier over here and less dry over there, so it makes sense. Well, that just means that you were wrong. The glaciers are still there. And the problem is you get an old guy like me who's taken at least 40 years of this global warming, global cooling BS. Nothing's ever panned out the way they say it is. And if it does, they go, geez, we were right. And most of the time, 90% of the time when it doesn't, they go, well, geez, it's because it really did turn out that way, but really it's just, this or that. And they make up some excuse as to why they're not wrong. I mean, that's typical of scientists.
Antarctica is beyond hope. It's melting. It'll melt completely into the ocean. And 97% of scientists agree that
97% of scientists do not agree that it's hopeless for the Antarctic.
They say it's beyond it's beyond us doing anything about it. It's melting beyond what can be replaced.
Well, and the bottom line is they don't know. They don't know. They make these predictions and they don't come true. I mean, the number one tenet of Christianity, we'll just go back to Christ. If you have a prophet, the only way you can tell he's a true or false prophet is what he says comes true or not. And the bottom line is, how do you know? These people don't even know enough about the Antarctic to go, geez, this is the way it is. How do we know all the warming down in Antarctica the last 3 years, which is what they're pointing to, is not related to El Nino?
You know what? I should have known that we would have a more to say about this than time allotted. Although I would say it's problematic for you to be comparing Christianity to climate science, but I don't think anybody's going to walk out.
No, I'm just talking about this climate change religion, which is what it is. It's a set of almost pure science Not really.
You know, we're gonna
they're
bring
just
on
beliefs, because these people don't talk about, well, this is what is. They talk about beliefs.
We're gonna find a climate scientist to come on and talk about this, because I can't debate this with you, because honestly, I'm just going off of the fact that there are, you know, nearly 9 in 10 scientists around the world all saying the same thing.
They're not saying the same thing. What you're saying is, it's like me saying, geez, all right, it's a God thing up there. It changes the environment. Does it really? Does it really change it? It might change it according to you. To me, I think, well, that's a good thing. The bottom line is climate change has always happened. Now, are humans part of this? Maybe. But keep in mind, there's so much fossil fuel underneath, which is the energy stored from when the earth was really hot, that we can't possibly go through it. It's not just oil. It's coal. It's natural gas. It's all kinds of other energies stored underneath.
So you're basically saying you're not even looking for the black cat in the dark room. You're looking for the black cat in the dark room that's not there with your blinders on. So we're gonna end the show with this final thought from yours truly. Doc's wrong. 97% agree with me, and we're gonna bring somebody on. No, we're gonna find somebody. We're gonna bring them on, and we're gonna talk about this stuff, because I don't pan through all this stuff looking for the problem with it, because I don't have the time. Here's the issue. So,
in other words, you do what every other liberal does: read the headlines and go, "Geez, I'm not going to do any research. I'm just going to keep drinking the Kool-Aid."
Well,
thanks for admitting to that.
It's better than reading.
That's for sure.
It's better than reading. It's better than reading the research and disagreeing because some cockamamie conspiracy theory about these climate scientists getting rich off of this somehow.
Oh yeah,
that's
like
all they say.
Al Gore's a conspiracy theory now. All right. Well, hold on.
I don't know what that means. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, because Al Gore makes millions of dollars a year on it. All these people make millions of dollars a year. So Lindra made $500 million of taxpayer money.
And it's solar power. We talked about that. We like solar power.
Yeah, but at least with the oil companies, we get a return on it. We're going to go to the primaries real quick. Mike Huckabee endorsed Bob Kramer in the congressional race and endorsed Sam Clovis in the Senate race, which I think are big endorsements. Iowa Right to Life, I think, endorsed Robert Kramer. Of course, the people that lead with endorsements locally is Brad Zahn and Joni Ernst. Those are the changes over this last week. I'm going to be on record. I endorse Brad Zahn for Congress and Joni Ernst for Senate. I don't know if you want to weigh in on this at all, or
I don't make endorsements.
Oh, well, that's probably a good policy. We're going to be back next week from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m.
Are we going to do a show while the primaries are going next week?
Yeah, we might as well.
Okay.
So remember to go out and vote. Vote early. Vote often. Vote Republican. I'm just teasing. That's what the Democrats do. So anyway, you got anything coming up this week?
Nope, nothing.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week. Same time. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Go visit Lefty's new blogs. I'll have one up this week as well. Thanks a lot, everybody, for tuning in. See you next week.
Goodbye.
Hi, I'm Representative Tom Shaw, and I love these guys. Both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Love both of them.